Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first panel, Ecology, the intersection between student activism and climate action. We're so excited to have you all here tonight, and we're looking forward to great discussions and reflections. So we're going to get started.
So first, we'll just go over the aims of the panel. So during today's panel, we will have the opportunity to hear personal reflections on experiences with climate change from a couple of Pulse interns with communities responding to extreme weather, as well as details about climate activism on college campuses from esteemed organization leaders like Kyle Rosenthal of Boston College Climate Justice, various UGBC leaders who were instrumental in the founding of the Division of Environmental Sustainability, and Kat DeMasi of Tree-Plenish. Throughout our conversations tonight, we hope to answer the following guiding questions. What is climate justice? In what ways can students like ourselves become successful advocates for climate justice and action? And what can you do to further get involved in this fight?
So first, we just want to introduce ourselves. We are Boston College Pulse interns who have been working with communities responding to extreme weather, or CREW. CREW is a nonprofit dedicated to ensuring climate resilience in the Boston area and elsewhere in the United States. CREW is a member of the Massachusetts Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster and is also part of the nonprofit The Better Future Project. We prepare and educate neighborhoods about climate change and also help communities build resilience against extreme weather events that are going to become more intense and more frequent in the next few decades. CREW is a network of local leaders building grassroots climate resilience through inclusive and hands-on education, service, and planning. And together we are working to equip families and communities with the resources and capacity to prepare for and respond to local climate changes equitably, sustainably, and collaboratively. And today we are very excited to explore and discuss how current students are affected by climate change and what they can do to help achieve climate justice and resilience.
So here's just a quick video summarizing what climate justice is and why it is so important for those of us not yet directly or majorly impacted by climate change to get involved in the fight now.
It was the strongest typhoon ever heard. I lost both my parents, my eldest brother, my sister-in-law, and my 3-year-old nephew.
You will be placed under arrest on the charge of disorderly conduct.
I'm just a youth. I'm just standing here with my small voice to this big corporation.
Okay, hi guys. My name is Diandra Hadisurjo. I am one of the Pulse panel interns, the ones who are organizing this. I am going to be talking about a bit of my personal experience. I'm actually a sophomore at Boston College. I'm majoring in environmental geoscience, and I grew up in Jakarta, Indonesia, so I'm an international student here. I've actually never left Jakarta more than 2 months since before I came to college here. I think a big part of my identity is Indonesia, so I'd like to talk a bit more about my country. Indonesia is a country located in Southeast Asia. It consists of 17,508 islands filled with diverse cultures and various habitats. These habitats are homes for endangered species that are listed on the IUCN Red List of threatened species right now. I don't know if this is biased or not, but I kind of believe that Indonesia is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. we have beautiful landscapes, and that can feel so unreal in moments. Like, I still can't believe that I can go like 30 minutes away and see all of this. But it's tarnished because of the abuse that we cause to our planet. And this is actually my city, and this is kind of the place I live most of the day. I live in Jakarta, the capital city of Indonesia. You know, every day I wake up and I hope to look outside and see the blue skies, you know, that I took for granted when I was a kid. But most of the time I look outside and sometimes I can't even see the sun because the smoke particles are kind of so bad. You know, when it comes to Indonesia, I know this is a bit morbid, but you kind of think about environmental justice and injustice, and you think we have it. There's a lot of deforestation that happens. You know, there's a lot of pollution, there's a lot of droughts, and there's a lot of floods. You know, forests are consistently burnt for the palm oil industry, which kind of drives our economy. We are on the top 10 most polluted countries in the world. There's a long periods of dry spells where we don't get rain at all. And then on the other hand, there's a long period of rainfall where flooding occurs. The picture on the top right is actually probably like 5 minutes away from where I live. One common thing in environmental injustice and social justice issues, which I realize, is that there is this constant cycle where the vulnerable are subjected to more vulnerability because of injustice. And Indonesia has so many examples of this. One thing that kind of stands out to me is that Indonesia has one of the highest poverty rates in the world. So then people who are in poverty are actually subjected to so much climate change and the effects that it has on people. Because they lack the resources, they are the ones who are most vulnerable. Many people in poverty live close to the river where I live. When floods occur and the lakes overflow, they're the first ones to get hit by it. And a lot of their belongings and their houses are made of really cheap quality materials, meaning that they get damaged and they're kind of left with nothing. Sorry. Environmental justice is something I've been aware of because of what I've seen on a daily basis. You know, it's kind of why I started to pursue a major in environmental geoscience, and I came to America because I felt that America has so much knowledge about it that my country doesn't, because it's a developing country. And I think that climate justice is a stepping stone towards all social justice. So I kind of think of it in a way where climate justice is this catalyst, you know. So climate change causes every other social justice issue to speed up. So I believe that climate justice is something that's very important, and that's why I've decided to take the path that I have now. I'll give this to Celina.
Hi guys, I'm Celina. I'm a sophomore at Boston College. I am a finance major in the Carroll School of Management. I'm also studying social impact and the public good. I'm from Orlando, Florida. I'm 19. I've been living here since I was 6 years old. I remember experiencing high frequency of hurricanes in my high school years, where it quickly escalated from when I was a kid. It became the norm to expect at least 2 hurricanes every fall semester of school, where we would have usually about a week and a half off of school just to recover from the damage. Losing power for multiple days on end was something we became used to. So we would prepare by buying large coolers filled with ice, emptying our fridge and our freezer, draining the pools, boarding up windows, you know, taping down furniture, stuff like that, buying fresh water, having gas for the grill to make sure that we were able to survive for the days without power. At one point it got really bad where we had a hurricane that was coming, and about 24 hours before, my city let us know that emergency services and police would not be available for the next 2 to 3 days because of the hurricane. So imagine the panic people felt, and we were like, so if we call emergency service, no one's going to come? And they said, yeah. And that held true. They did not come and help us. They came out about 3 days later. We were trapped in the community due to large trees falling down, blocking the roads. We had power lines down and people coming out with chainsaws trying to cut the trees with live power lines there and flooding in the streets. So you can think that's not a good sign at all. But that's what we were trying to do so we could get out, help people that needed help, get food and water and resources. I also grew up with extreme heat. So something that's normal in the summer is days over 100 degrees. And when you have the heat index, that, you have normal 120-degree days where you can't walk outside without shoes on because you'll burn your feet. You need to have water somewhere. You'd never see anyone out during the day because it's just so hot. And that leads to a lot of people going to the beach. But another thing is we've also experienced coastal erosion on the beaches from the hurricanes that we've been experiencing. And that's something that has really plagued Florida is, you see Miami and they're thinking of new ways to build infrastructure because they're flooding so much. So that's definitely something that I've experienced in my life. My activism really started senior year of high school when I took AP Environmental Science, and I said, I need to do something locally because I felt so bad learning about what was going on. And so senior year, I started going around my community, picking up trash off the sides of the roads on the weekend. I would normally get 2 to 3 bags full of trash just from small streets by my house. So if I had a team that was able to do that, I can't imagine what I would be able to find. And then when I went to college, that's kind of when it really ignited. I got involved in Eco Pledge, which is the largest student-led environmental group on campus, where I became involved in beach cleanups, organizing events, involving protests and climate strikes for that. And I also started taking an activism class where I was writing about climate change, and I was becoming aware of the term environmental justice. And that was the first time I ever heard about that. And actually BC has a class on it. So I decided to take it. And that class really opened up my eyes. And that was where I finally decided, well, being a business major, how do I tie this in? I think I'm going to go into CSR, which is corporate social responsibility. So doing something where I can try to make business as sustainable as possible to save the environment before we're on the point of no return. So that's kind of me and my story and my experience with climate change and how I'm trying to use my experience, turn it into activism, and make a career out of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the amazing presentation, Celina and Diandra. We are very lucky to have had you here today. And now presenting our members of the team who founded the Division of Environmental Sustainability within UGBC, a very exciting new sect of our student government. Newly inaugurated UGBC President Jack Bracker and UGBC Vice President Gianna Rusi campaigned on the creation of a division specifically for environmentalism and sustainability in the undergraduate government of Boston College. Under Jack and Gianna's guidance, and with the help of student activists on campus, class of 2023 Student Assembly Representative Julia Spagnola wrote and co-sponsored an amendment for the creation of a division of environmental sustainability, which was narrowly passed by the Student Assembly and adopted into the UGBC Constitution in March. Now led by newly appointed Division Director Giovanna Eichner, the Division for Environmental Sustainability is now a tenet of student government at Boston College. So without further ado, I'll hand it off to you guys if you want to share your screen.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. 1 second. Thank you so much to the crew team, the other panelists, and all the Pulse interns for this opportunity. I think I joined my fellow UGBC colleagues in saying that we're super excited to be here and to share a little bit of what we've been working on this year. My name is Julia Spagnola. I'm a student assembly representative in the class of 2023. I'm one of the people who was lucky to have a hand in working on this division of environmental sustainability, and I'm super excited that it's now a functioning part of UGBC.
Hello, everyone. I'm Giovanna. Thank you for hosting me today. I'm excited to talk about the division. I'm a sophomore here at BC, and I'm majoring in history and minoring in environmental studies and German studies. And like I said, I'm honored to have the responsibility of being the director of Environmental Sustainability Division, and I'm excited to work with many of you, hopefully, on what we will achieve.
Hey everyone, my name is Jack Brocker. I'm currently a junior at BC. I'm really privileged to be serving as the UGBC president for this upcoming year. So this is I think my second day on the job. Inauguration was Sunday, so still working out, just trying to figure out what I want to do with what I would like to accomplish with the position. But Gianna and I ran very heavily on environmental and sustainability, creating the division, B, ensuring a strong precedent for UGBC's involvement in environmental and sustainability initiatives, activism, etc. And then the third, creating a more sustainable Boston College. I think that's what we all want, and so we're really looking forward to doing that over the course of this upcoming year.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Gianna Rusi. I am a junior in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences, double majoring in poli-sci and history. And like Jack, I'm also second day on the job, so we're still figuring out the kinks. But like Jack mentioned, we really ran on a heavy sustainability platform focused on bringing voices together, because Jack and I both did a lot of work with the SAC and just BC dining, composting, and that's a platform we really got to see. We got to hear from different sustainability groups on campus and everything they were achieving. So we really want to build off of that work and be able to really centralize advocacy and provide these student groups with the resources they need also. So we're very excited to get started.
Sorry. Got it. Okay, so one of the questions that we asked when we were moving to kind of put this division together and create it was why make a division of environmental sustainability? And I think first and foremost, one of the major things we touched on was the need for climate action globally and how the incentive to act not just as a campus community, but as students and student leaders, the time was now. And so I think by making the greater commitment to environmentalism at Boston College, we really kind of are able to make that commitment in terms of making a division, but we're also able to put the structures in place to make sure that environmentalism and sustainability has a place at our campus and at our school for generations to come, and it can make our experience as BC students just as fruitful for future generations as it was for ourselves. And so I really believe that this division will allow for increased access to resources so that it can be successful. UGBC is lucky to be a organization at Boston College that has great access to administration and also financial resources that can plan initiatives and projects and include the people and make the policies to allow for really lasting change that makes a difference in students' lives and on the campus, within the campus community. And so I think creating the division was really putting in place that organizational structure to handle all the responsibilities that come with making sustainability a priority. And one of that was, it started with our students. We were able to meet with lots of great students from different activist groups on campus, from CJBC and Eco Pledge. I know Kyle Rosenthal is here today. He was one of the people who helped make this a possibility. And we definitely got their ideas, and they shared with us their thoughts on how this could be a successful division. And so we're really grateful for all of their insights, and it wouldn't be the division it is today without them.
So we are lucky that BC already has, as you can see, a strong presence of sustainability in various groups on campus and in the surrounding community. As Julia said, I feel like many of you are present here tonight. And this is something that the division really hopes to continue to build. And I think it's also because sustainability and a type of environmentalism that focuses on justice is something that is and should be important to many students at BC. due to the fact that it aligns with our Jesuit values of service and cura personalis. Noting the value of each unique being and taking action to care for that person is a large part of environmentalism, because how we use and conceptualize the environment connects us all. I know that many of my peers and I had to probably read Laudato Si in various classes, whether it be theology or environmental studies. And in this encyclical, the Pope addresses not just a certain group of people, but really everyone, and calls for solidarity, because the causes of and effects of climate change impact everyone, although of course they're not necessarily equally distributed. And it's through this call to action and solidarity that we really built the division, and we are emphasizing on focusing on not just ourselves but on others and how environmentalism affects other people. So the division aims to strengthen and bring all the groups that are already on campus together in order to really get things done.
Yeah, so this is our bell. This is a little bit of what it looked like. The final product. I know all of us are really proud of it. And this is kind of the state that it looked in as it passed and was brought to the student assembly floor in March. But really kind of making this bill a possibility. The process kind of started with envisioning, as I mentioned before, what we wanted it to look like. Another part of that was making sure we had the structures in place. So creating different roles that I'll mention, and I know Jack, Gianna, and Giovanna will mention as well, that were specific to the types of things we wanted to accomplish, whether that was legacy projects, definitely the financial resources it would need to be successful, the ability to tackle things like intersectionality and volunteering, and just all of those things in place. And once we did that, we ran it by some of the student activists that I mentioned. We had lots of different meetings together. We collaborated. We met with other members of the student assembly to gather co-sponsors. We answered their questions. We definitely shared ideas with them, and they shared their ideas with us, some of which are now a part of the finished product in the division today. And we were able to gauge their support, and then we finally were able to bring the bill to the floor for debate. And I know Gianna will mention a little bit about that process.
Sure. So like Julia mentioned, a lot went into the overall process of getting this finalized bill done. It had to be an amendment to the Constitution to be able to create a new division. So that in itself requires a supermajority of the Senate, which is 2/3. So that's obviously not a small feat. That's pretty big. So we're really glad that we were able to get that vote of the supermajority. And in debate, something that was very vital to the passing of the amendment was the voices of students. The student body really came through. Student activist, climate activist groups, sustainability groups on campus really came together. And something that I think is really touching is that throughout the entire process of getting the bill passed, first of all, to imagining this division, to crafting the bill, to getting the division positions in place, all of that was strengthened by student voices. All of that was run by student voices. And I think that was true to the very end. A lot of the climate activist groups and sustainability groups on campus came to the meeting, and they were able to voice, through public comment, what they thought this division meant to them, and what it would mean to amplify their voices, what it would mean to strengthen their resources. And I think that was really a strong way to leave the debate and go into voting. So that was an integral moment for us, and it really helped getting the bill passed. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about the budget. So one of our campaign promises was, in addition to the division would have a $10,000 to $15,000 budget. We clocked in at $14,850, so definitely closer to 15,000 than 10,000. So we were really excited about that. And then just doing like a little breakdown so you guys can get a sense of what we'll see on campus next year. So Gianna, in her capacity as a student assembly representative, worked on a compost bin program with Real Food BC, so ensuring a subsidy for compost bins for students who wanted them. We'll be looking to expand those and increase the amount of students with compost bins on campus. If they have kitchens. So if you're a junior living in 2K or a senior living in Ignacio, you'll hopefully be able to sign up to receive a compost bin. Environmental film screening. That's something we're going to be working and getting input from student activists on campus about. Can we host an event with a environmental related film? Every Bite Counts is a program led by UGBC that I think it repackages excess food to distribute to I think homeless shelters. So we upped the funding for that so we can increase that initiative in that program. The legacy programming is kind of in the spirit of the Green Initiatives Fund at Iowa State. I just pasted it, or I just copied it into the chat if anyone's interested in checking that out. But the Green Initiatives Fund at Iowa State is a grant program that actually, never mind, it's at the bottom there, grant program that funds a project for a student on campus related to environmental and sustainability initiatives. So if you have an idea about how you would want to make a tangible impact on BC's campus in an environmental and sustainability related way, and you're looking for funding on that project, please do not hesitate to apply for it. We'll probably know more about that over the course of the summer. Legacy programming. So every division in UGBC has a legacy event, ALC Showdown, ALC Ball, CSD Dinner in the Dark is the one we're going to make this year for the Council for Students with Disabilities, GLC Ball. So we're going to be looking to do something, a large event related to environmental sustainability. Succulents on the Quad. It's a initiative aimed at promoting healthy living. So check out whenever we do Succulents on the Quad, you can come by and pick up a small succulent for your dorm room or off-campus apartment. And then volunteer transportation and supplies. So one of the other things we wanted to include in the division was an environmental volunteer corps. We'll get into that a little bit later, but that's just going to be to ensure that BC students have the opportunity to volunteer, whether on campus or off campus, to promote a more healthy environment. So whether that's a res cleanup or beach cleanup or Boston Public Garden cleanup. So if you have any ideas on what you would want to see for volunteer trips for BC students related to environmental and environmentalism, please do not hesitate to shoot some ideas our way. And then environmental speakers and nonprofits, it's pretty straightforward, looking to bring in some environmental speakers or nonprofits for speaking events. And then the Earth Day Fair. So during Green Week, a lot of the environmental groups on campus do events, initiatives, programming. So we're going to be looking up our involvement, up UGBC's involvement in Green Week. So.
Yeah, so to build on kind of how we're planning to run the division, a key part of the division will be, as you can see in the way that Jack, Gianna, Julia made it, is going to be drawing on the expertise from student activists and community members. So although only environmentally focused groups are shown here on the slide, it really is our mission to incorporate as many organizations as possible to achieve true intersectionality in our environmentalism. We really recognize the interconnectedness of all people in the environment and want to use as many different perspectives as possible to inform what we do. It is for these reasons that UGBC and on-campus environmentalists really saw the division as a necessary step. So to kind of give a little bit of background on what we were doing before and how the division is different, Boston College Dining has very generously hosted the Sustainability Action Committee, something Gianna mentioned earlier, for several years now. And it's because of their kindness that various environmental clubs have been keeping each other updated on their events and goals a couple times a semester. So the inspiration and the basis for a large part of the division structure really came from this model of incorporating many student voices. So it's also how we want to expand upon the great things that the Sustainability Action Committee has already done. We hope that the division will be able to facilitate collaboration with more frequent meetings and communication between different groups on campus. So initiatives like the composting program and volunteer work that span multiple clubs will be able to come together and become better and bigger. So beyond updates on clubs events, we really hope that the SIC and the division will be a place for brainstorming initiatives as well as to implement and coordinate different efforts beyond the clubs that traditionally participate, something that, like, we talk about the eco bubble, so kind of breaking on beyond just these clubs. So that's also something that we saw is important to Crew and the way that they highlight intersectionality as well. It's also important to note, I think, that the division doesn't want to take autonomy or power away from the amazing environmental groups that are already on campus and doing such amazing work. Rather, we really hope to provide the space and support that they need to build upon their work. So students from all over campus will be represented in these meetings, and their experiences and what we learn from the community beyond campus will also decide the division's policy and events.
Yeah, so I can touch a bit on policymaking. So obviously policymaking is a big part as well of the creation of this division, and it kind of will rework the way that the Student Assembly focuses on sustainability initiatives. So for example, I was in the Student Life Committee as a class of 2022 representative this past term. And something I took on was, sustainability initiatives, looking to support sustainability groups on campus by going to the Sustainability Action Committee's meetings, like Giovanna mentioned earlier. It's actually how I met Giovanna, through her work in Real Food BC, and tried to support them that way. I think that this would be a great year to rework the way that Student Assembly representatives function as liaisons with the division, to ensure that whatever the division needs to get done policy wise, or whatever requires more policy making, will get done. And that's going to be interesting to reimagine in the Student Life Committee to kind of expand their reach. So we're looking to explore more sustainable options at Boston College and connect with administrators and student advocacy groups, because again, this Student Assembly within UGBC kind of focuses on that connection with administration, and they have a lot of those meetings. So just trying to make that connection and trying to bridge that gap would be really important this next year.
Yeah, so another big part of this division, and one of the big things we tried to hit home during debate and in talking with other student activists and creating the division, was the component of intersectionality. And I know, as many people here are aware, intersectionality plays a big role in environmentalism, and a lot of the issues in our world, such as environmental racism and socioeconomic status, are impacted by changes in climate and the environment as well. So I think our goal here is to really play an active role in combating issues of environmental justice. So a big key component of that will be having an intersectionality coordinator who engages with dialogue with the Diversity and Inclusion Division, which is another division within UGBC. And so this can be anything from facilitating discussions, sharing ideas, researching different solutions to environmental justice issues, paying close attention to potential issues of environmental justice on our campus or in the Boston community, because I know those are there's some very unique issues relating to environmental justice right in our own backyard. And so basically we'll be in part with facilitating those conversations about environmentalism and equality. We'll also be taking place in the Student Assembly with the Intersectionality Committee, where their key role is making legislation on intersectional issues at our at Boston College and at our school.
So as I previously mentioned, one of the positions, or one of the facets of the division, is going to be something called the Environmental Volunteer Corps. So this would be led by like 2 students, one researching, looking for and organizing events, or volunteer events on campus, and then the other off campus. I think BC has a really strong culture of service. I mean, just look at Pulse. I did Jamaican Magis, Julia did APA. So there's already a really strong precedent for service on campus, but there isn't much for environmental service. I think Eco Pledge is one of, I don't know if many other groups on campus that do environmental service have a designated area for environmental service. So we're going to be really looking to bolster our presence for service on campus. So below are a couple examples of that. And at the same time, one of the things we ran into was not many students have the ability, time commitment wise or interest wise, to commit to the main environmental groups, whether it's climate justice, eco pledge, Sea Eagles, crew, etc. That being said, that doesn't mean they don't believe in climate change and they don't want to act. Look at the divestment referendum. I think it was like 80 or 90% of the students who voted in favor of divestment. So there's obviously a precedent for a desire for BC to be a more sustainable and eco-friendly campus. The Environmental Volunteer Corps would be kind of a loose sign up where, if you have a free Saturday and we're doing an event in the Boston Public Garden, or like planting trees or cleaning up the garden, etc. You would be able to come down on your Saturday afternoon and volunteer with BC students and create a more sustainable Boston College and create a more eco-friendly Boston. So really trying to connect both BC to Boston in a way that I don't think we've had in the past. So we're really looking forward to that over the course of the next year.
Yeah, so I can just touch on this. I know Jack mentioned it in the budget conversation, but some legacy events we're looking to host this year. Obviously, the Earth Day Fair, which is a normal part of Green Week, and there'll be other Cornerstone Legacy components. And then we'll have programmers within the division who can coordinate with the student groups, as I mentioned, to assist in the event planning and get ideas and coordinate these initiatives.
So as for what's next, as you can see, we have a lot of goals and hopes for the division, and something crucial that will be forming a team. So at the end, I will definitely drop the application link in the chat if you want to apply. But what I'm also looking forward to about this is that it's definitely going to be a new type of team for sustainability at BC, with new positions, like we mentioned earlier, like an intersectionality coordinator, or positions that will bolster the efforts that the group's already doing, like a volunteer corps coordinator. So also, like, working within the framework of UGBC will provide new opportunities to bring students' voices to the table. So then obviously we're going to define our goals and kind of figure out what we want to do. And I was definitely inspired by the values that crew puts forth, like local leadership and equity. And we're excited to make positive change on campus with the help of everyone here and beyond.
Yeah, thank you for crew, first of all, for hosting us tonight. And just to reiterate what Giovanna said, we're really looking forward to making a strong push on and off campus next year. If you're interested in applying to the division, we're currently accepting applications. I think there's kind of a description of all the positions if you go to the application, so be sure to check that out. But also, like I said, like, we're going to be hosting a lot of events next year, whether that's programming and initiatives or volunteer trips. So if you are interested in any of those opportunities, initiatives, events, programming, etc., would love to have you as a active participant in what we do next year. So should be a good year, and we're really looking forward to it.
For sure. And we also have there our quote, "For Eagles with Eagles." It's something Jack and I ran on, but it's also something that we'll continue doing in our time in our administration. So please definitely get involved if it's something that calls to you. And obviously don't hesitate to reach out to any of us if you have any questions. We're really, really looking forward to what this division will become.
And I'll drop my number in the chat. So if you ever need anything, whether it's environmental topics or etc., or if you have a question related to anything UGBC, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm always try to be as transparent and open as possible. So feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Julia, Jack, Gianna, Giovanna. That was an amazing presentation, and I think I can speak for everyone when I say that this new division is definitely needed and a great step in the right direction for BC and its relationship with sustainability. So thank you so much for that. Next up, we have Climate Justice at Boston College, which is a student organization at BC that advocates for divestment from fossil fuel companies, educates students and community members on climate change, and also empowers students to stand up for climate justice. Today we have Kyle Rosenthal joining us to represent CJBC. He's a senior at BC, and he has also had a lot of experience with student activism during his time here. He's currently studying operations and social impact and has been passionate about the environment since he was young. He joined the movement to divest from fossil fuels his freshman year, and he is also a co-founder of the international organization, the College Climate Coalition, and a coordinator of the Catholic Divestment Network. He also works closely with the marine conservation organization Element Hope and the mental health nonprofit Lean On Me. His proudest achievement in college has been ensuring the protection of the 15-acre Webster Woods in Newton. And so thank you so much, Kyle, for joining us tonight. We are so happy to have you here today, and take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I was also a Pulse student my sophomore year for a different organization, so definitely excited to be here. Awesome. So yeah, just again to reintroduce myself, my name's Kyle. I'm a senior at BC in our business school and also doing a minor in sustainability and social impact. You can see right in this photo here, this is an event from way back in 2015 that we held on campus. But so again, just to like dive in a little bit deeper to some of the stuff that I and CJBC are involved in. Again, I'm a general member of Climate Justice at BC, which is a climate justice group at Boston College, of course. And within that, we are a part of and work with a number of other different organizations and coalitions in Boston and also internationally. So I'm also a coordinator of the Catholic Divestment Network, which is a coalition of Jesuit and Catholic universities in the US and Canada, of all groups essentially very similar to climate justice at BC, working on a lot of the same things. As was mentioned in the last presentation, there's the Boston Intercollegiate Government, which does a lot of really awesome work across schools in the Boston and Massachusetts area. The Atlantic Coast Conference Climate Justice Coalition, one of the most fun acronyms, is all of the schools in that athletic conference that we just started this past July. And we kind of got a joint call from student groups and faculty groups at all of those schools and most of their student governments for divestment. And actually students in the entire Big Ten and entire Ivy League, their student governments also joined in that call. So that's about, I think, 43 schools collectively, calling for similar actions. And then finally, the College Climate Coalition, which is, again, very similar groups to Climate Justice at BC in the US, Canada, the UK, and Australia now, I believe. Again, just kind of doing resource sharing, dialogue, a lot of different things together. And so CJBC is really proud to be a member of all these different groups and collaborating on all of those different things. So I thought I would just do another quick overview on climate justice at a university and how we kind of perceive that as a group. I'll dive into it a little bit later, but our foremost goal is divestment from fossil fuels. Boston College has about a $2.7 billion endowment. We don't know a lot of the details of that endowment, but it's the second largest one of any Catholic university in the US and the largest of a Jesuit university in the US. And so we do know that a significant amount of that endowment is invested directly in fossil fuel companies, and that's definitely something that we want to address. We have a number of other goals. As an organization, one thing we'd like to see is some type of commitment toward carbon neutrality. From Boston College in terms of making their operations carbon neutral. And that will involve a number of things, including procurement of renewable energy, as well as, we've pushed for quite some time. And I know the student government is currently working on this, trying to get electric buses for all of our bus routes on campus. But again, just to speak to, intersectionality and where that's relevant, something that we've increasingly been working on both on campus and off is working with particularly marginalized groups affected by climate change. And what does it mean for climate justice to be intersectional with racial justice, indigenous justice, gender justice. And so again, something we've increasingly been talking about is acknowledging the land that we're on and the indigenous people whose land that was and that were removed from it. And just our relationship with them and those groups and how we can incorporate that into what we're calling for where our university is located. And another big initiative that's been discussed recently, is BC's relationship with its surrounding communities of Newton, Chestnut Hill, Alston, Brighton, and a bunch of different both municipal governments, but also just neighbors, and then that extends beyond climate justice to a number of other issues, and just how we kind of have that relationship with them. So here's just kind of a very shrunken timeline of divestment largely. So the divestment movement was actually started around 2011 in terms of fossil fuels, but in 2014, about $52 billion had been divested by 181 institutions globally. And so, at that point, that was a relatively significant amount. And our group, Climate Justice, had asked, BC repeatedly by that point to divest with, all this backing, and really asking BC to kind of be the leader in this space and address its investments. I'll skip over some of the stuff in between, but there have been, a number of different actions taken. Ultimately, this past December, a complaint was filed against BC with the Massachusetts Attorney General's office over its fossil fuel investments, because at that point, $14.56 trillion with a T had been divested by 1,300 institutions. That includes universities, church communities, cities, states, the country of Ireland, the country of Norway, the state of New York have all divested from fossil fuels, and BC still hadn't taken action. So zooming out a little bit about like what is divestment and what does it mean, largely beyond fossil fuels. The first official kind of divestment campaign occurred around the 1980s. That was encouraging universities and other institutions to not invest in companies that were engaged in apartheid practices in South Africa. And BC ultimately did actually divest from companies that were engaged in that. And that movement obviously had a financial impact on those companies, but more broadly, it kind of stigmatized them and said that their practices weren't approved of. And so in the 1990s and 2000s, that same tactic was deployed against the tobacco industry. No clear action was taken from BC, but another other major universities like Harvard had divested, and there were very clear financial impacts from that, as well as there was large-scale litigation from federal and state and local governments. In 2006, there was also a specific divestment from companies operating in Sudan, some of which were oil companies. And then again, fast forward to the actual fossil fuel divestment movement, started specifically at Swarthmore College. And around in that same year, in 2011, Climate Justice at BC, our group was officially founded. And I also wanted to give a little shout out. Some of these slides I had help with from two students, Alana and Martha from Harvard University. We have done a lot of these intersectionality kind of presentations before, so definitely just want to shout them out there too. I forgot to do that at the beginning. But so we really see three major reasons to divest from fossil fuels. Again, just not investing in fossil fuel companies for BC in particular, but all universities largely. The first two being the moral and financial imperatives. As just any institution, whether Catholic or not, we see there, just being an obligation to divest due to all of the effects of climate change and the fact that in addition to fossil fuel companies causing a lot of these issues and, emitting the most greenhouse gases, being aware of that for decades and not doing anything and actively practicing misinformation. We have had discussions with multiple faculty members whose research has been attacked by these fossil fuel companies, that BC is investing in. And so we see it just as a moral, academic freedom standpoint. It just doesn't really, make sense to contradict, your own research. And then of course, on the financial side, fossil fuel companies have been declining for decades. And, there's tons and tons of resources out there that I can definitely put in here about that. But just compared to the general market without fossil fuels, they've actively been losing money. And our endowment and investments have actively lost money the last 3 fiscal years. And the thing that we think, is likely the cause is definitely, BC's investments in fossil fuels. And so again, just jumping to the third reason, which is a legal imperative. And that's the thing that's really kind of catalyzed a lot of our action in the last few months in particular. So there's certain duties that our administration and board of trustees have in terms of managing money. And, part of that is a fiduciary duty to pursue financially sound investments, which of course, as I just said, we don't believe that fossil fuels are. And in addition to that, ensuring that whatever the mission is of the university or the charitable institution, that it's, in line with its investments. And so again, we feel that's not in line with BC's Catholic mission. And actually the Vatican and Pope Francis in July of 2020 put out a specific directive saying that Catholic institutions have an obligation to divest from fossil fuels. So as BC continues to obviously advertise itself as a Jesuit Catholic institution, not divesting is actually directly contradicting that. And we actually had a discussion this morning with some different lawyers about this topic, and it's become very clear that the value of a BC degree being not just a degree from any university, but a Catholic university means something. And to do that, we believe that legally there's this obligation. So right now, the Attorney General for the state of Massachusetts is actually investigating some of these claims. I'll say that personally, and I think our hope as the group Climate Justice is that this is resolved through dialogue. We've been very open to dialogue with administrators and trustees. We would rather not the Attorney General come in and say, BC, you legally have to divest. We'd rather they kind of get to that on their own accord. But until that happens, again, this group that put forward this complaint to the Attorney General has been working with their office to get sort of a compelling action from the state. And just to shout out some other related legal tactics, for those who might have heard of the Juliana case, it was started about 2.5 years ago and was just relaunched, but it involves a series of lawsuits and complaints across the country against state and federal governments, arguing that the government has an obligation to address and respond to climate change, and that specific rights to life essentially have been violated. And so that's been very cool to see. It's been all youth led. And then also jumping to a complaint recently filed with the Federal Trade Commission against Chevron for essentially false advertising. And we see this thing that comes up a lot called greenwashing, where a company will say that they are very environmentally friendly, but it's quite the opposite. And I think we're increasingly seeing that in terms of BC's investments as well, where they're saying, we are doing ethical things, and it's very clear that's not the case. And so those are just two things that we found interesting to kind of, keep a pulse of and just keep watching. Also, I can definitely share these slides. I think this is being recorded, so we'll put that out there too. Just wanted to shout out some resources in terms of like what divestment is, what are these legal, financial, moral obligations, and what that looks like. And definitely feel free to reach out to me or any member of Climate Justice on that. And then just the final point I wanted to make, as was mentioned in the intro, climate justice, again, our main goal is definitely divestment from fossil fuels, but any time that, climate justice comes up as an issue, and whether that's supporting students fighting for racial justice, fighting against hate crimes, other things on and off campus, that's something that we are doing our best to be involved in, because again, our view is absolutely that climate justice is racial justice. And like with the Webster Woods case, we are doing whatever we can to continue kind of having direct outreach with community members and neighbors in Newton, Chestnut Hill, Alston, Brighton, to ensure that BC is not just being like an okay neighbor, but a great neighbor in some university and institution that they want in their communities. And again, that's something that we've been increasingly trying to work toward, whether that's protecting woodland with endangered species and walking paths for community members that they've been using for years, divesting from fossil fuels, of course. And just protecting like the land around us. I think we want to do whatever we can to be involved in the community. And again, I'm very excited, and we're very excited to see the things that UGBC has done and being able to go and actively volunteer in the community. I think we're really looking forward to being a part of that as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that amazing presentation, Kyle, and for all of the incredible work that you and your team do both around campus and within the Chestnut Hill community to ensure equitable climate justice for all. That was like an amazing presentation, so thank you so much. And now we are joined by Kat DeMasi, the head of public relations for Tree-Plenish, a student organization dedicated to building sustainable communities by leveraging the power of youth. So if you want to share your screen, Kat, I'll leave it up to you.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm going to pull up our slides for you guys. Awesome. So I'm here representing Tree-Plenish. Tree-Plenish is not necessarily a BC specific community. However, we do have a lot of BC students involved in our programs. So a quick overview, Tree-Plenish is a 501c3 registered nonprofit organization whose goal, obviously, as Lucie just mentioned, is building sustainable communities by leveraging the power of youth. Obviously, that's a great goal, but how do we do that in communities around the country? So we partner with high school students across the US to host tree planting events that compensate or cover their school's annual paper usage, their school's usage of paper during their last academic year. So we estimate that one tree planted in their community can offset 10,000 sheets of paper used by their school. So as you can see in the example, a school that uses 2 million sheets of paper, we set a goal with them to plant 20 trees in their community. So we follow a 3-step event process to help high school students plan these events. The first step is to obviously meet with them and plan the event specific, make sure they're on board with everything we have to offer. And during this phase of the process, students figure out how much paper their school used during the last academic year. And then we help them convert that into the number of trees that they should be planting in their community. Obviously, that is just a baseline goal. We'd love it for them to exceed that. We've had schools this year plant upwards of 500 trees in their communities. The next phase is to market their program or event to their community. That involves reaching out to residents to ask them to request for trees to be planted in their yard or to volunteer to help plant trees on the day of their specific event in the spring, or if residents can, help out with both. And then obviously the last step, they need to host their actual event. So that would be planning and picking a day in the spring, sometime between mid-March and early May, where on that day, teams of volunteers go out in the community to plant trees in the actual residents' yards. So our 2021 impact was that we planted about 19,000 trees across the country, across 20 different states with 86 different schools involved. And that coordinated to about 400 plus student leaders. Here are some photos from our events this spring, just so you guys can get to see a little bit about how these are real people affecting real lives everywhere from California to New Hampshire. People went out and planted trees in their community to help offset their paper usage. So why trees? So why we focus on trees? There's 3 main reasons. One, trees help us breathe. Obviously, we're inhaling their oxygen every day, and they can absorb so much of our CO2, which brings me to the next point of trees reduce climate change. Trees absorb so much CO2 that otherwise would stay in the atmosphere or be absorbed by the ocean, which leads to ocean acidification and so many other environmental issues, that a mature tree can absorb pollutants from a car driven 26,000 miles. And obviously that makes a huge impact. Another big point is that trees save money and energy. Trees have what we've calculated to be about 2 to 5 times return on investment for towns, but also trees help reduce air conditioning needs with their shade and increase property values by up to 20%. So now why trees? Obviously, why youth? Why not focus on teachers and professors and principals of schools and just have them make their students sign up for these events? Obviously, we want students to have a voice, and we've seen how much youth voices can make a huge difference in communities. We really want to give high school students from around the country that platform to make a change, empower their peers, and create a generation who's going to stop the fossil fuels and the detriment to our environment that's going on now. So now that I've told you a little bit about us, I'd love to tell you a little bit about like our history, where we started. So although we are not BC specific, we were founded in Massachusetts, in Mansfield, Massachusetts, to be specific, at a local public high school. 2 students, Seitu Adeopin and Lizzie Elsner, were seniors, and this was actually a class project of theirs to just do it in one hometown. They were able to set out with a goal of 230 trees to help offset the 2018 to 2019 academic year's paper usage, but they were able to plant over 330 trees, which obviously exceeded their initial goal. And the word spread amongst the communities in Southeast Massachusetts that this was going on, and so many other schools wanted to get involved, that these 2 students, our co-directors now, decided to take Tree-Plenish national and have expanded the mission to over 85 schools across the country and across 20 different states. And part of that is due to the college students involved in our team. Our team is completely run by college students. We do have a board of advisors from 4 different organizations: Project Green Schools, Arbor Day Foundation, Keep Massachusetts Beautiful, and the Department of Natural Resources in Michigan. However, we are from 25 25 different college students from universities all over the country. 7 of our 25 employees, so to speak, are from BC, including our director of operations and director of marketing. But we also have schools like Harvard, University of Vermont, Indiana University, and Columbia University as well. So a little bit about our role versus students' roles here at Tree-Plenish is that our role is more about providing resources and mechanisms for those students to host the events. Obviously, because we're only a team of 25 and we have over 85 events going on, we can't send people across the country to attend all of these events. So although we provide mechanisms for change like the website, the marketing resources, payment platforms, help with finding sponsors in their community, the data of the event operations are completely on the students. They're in charge of where people pick up their trees, the location of the volunteers to meet up, and how that's all set out. Although we do also help by building connections with tree vendors to ensure that obviously all of the trees they need are where they need to be on the day of their event. We have 2 major tree farms in Michigan and Wisconsin that provide most of our trees. But we're also just there as a resource for students to help them throughout the planning process. We know that we're asking a lot of 16, 17, 18-year-old students to do on their own. So we're really there as a resource for them. But they are also in charge of finding all the people who want trees planted, as well as getting volunteers for their event. Because I'm not going to know everyone in Colorado that can help plant a tree. That's obviously on them as well. And the last big thing that they're in charge of that I think a lot of people overlook with these events is education of the community about what they're doing to make a difference and how the amount of paper a school uses really affects the environment. So what makes us different than most other nonprofits is that we are scalable and occur at the local level. So we focus really on individual communities and how we can help them build around their youth towards the sustainability. And luckily we started out with 1 school in Massachusetts, and now in 1 year it was able to get to 85. So our efforts are scalable, and we'd love to make it up to 200, 300 schools the following year. Another thing that makes us different is that we are completely run by college students. There's no one over like the ages of 21, 22 on our team. So we really understand what students are going through now in order to help make a difference. So that's definitely a big plus for us. And another thing is that we're planting on residential property, not private property by businesses or public land by the towns. So it really helps get all the community members involved that we're planting on their property on the day of their specific event. Another thing that helps keep us very local is our event fundraising. We have a motto of keep local money local. Our organizational fundraising, we mainly only do it through like birthday fundraising, and we're participating in the Falmouth Road Race, but all of that money obviously goes directly to the organization, but any money raised by the schools themselves or through corporate sponsors in their specific community goes directly to the event. We have tiered systems to help with their benefits of those people, but all of the money that they donate goes directly to the event in their community so they can really see how it takes effect at the local level. Just to plug a little bit, our partners, we are partnered obviously nationally as well with Keep Massachusetts Beautiful, Project Green Schools, the Arbor Day Foundation, Rhode Island Environmental Education Association, and those are our organizational partners. But we also have new partners like Nature's Logic and Maple Craft Foods that have also begun to partner with us, as well as hundreds of local partners that have sponsored individual events as well. And then finally, just to wrap up, I'd love to share a little bit with you guys. I won't go into all of it, but our process and timeline. We start taking schools that want to participate in our events from now until about mid-October. We have them fill out a form saying that they're interested in hosting a tree planting event, and that goes through till mid-October. Then November, December, all the way to March is when we are planning and marketing with these students to help make their events a success. And then late March to about mid-May is when all of the events will take place in the communities. I'd love to plug that our event form is open for the 2021 to 2022 school year. So if any of you guys know high school students interested in getting involved in a sustainability project, I'd love for you to pass our name along. I'll also drop an email for a chat in the chat for anyone who has any questions about our events specifically, or how college students can get involved, because we are always looking for new people to join our team, especially with BC. We have so many of you guys already. We love working with BC students. So thank you guys so much for listening to me talk about Tree-Plenish, and let me know if there's anything I can answer for you guys.
Thank you so much, Kat, for the presentation. And we just wanted to thank all of our panelists for your presence, for your hard work towards making our campus and broader community more sustainable, and for all of the resources and opportunities made us all aware of. So thank you so much to everybody that has participated tonight. And now we just want to transition into a quick Q&A. So if any of the participants or panelists have questions for the people who spoke today, please just send them either directly to one of the hosts in the chat or in the public chat, and we'll try to get those answered. Sadly, the panelists from UGBC, most of the panelists had to leave to attend a meeting, but if you have any questions or thoughts for them, they wanted to let you know that you can reach out to them whenever and with any inquiries. So just send now any questions in the chat if you have any.
Okay, so we have a question for Kat from Margaret. She's asking, do most of the students who do Tree-Plenish do it annually?
So the goal is to have each school do it annually. Not necessarily will the same students be on the project if they're seniors, but what we try and do is partner with environmental clubs at high schools as well to keep the project going. So we'd love to work with the students year after year, but obviously they eventually graduate. So we try and make sure that schools we've already done events with do them again the following year.
I have a question just for anyone who wants to respond, but do you feel like COVID has like affected your organization from in any way, like achieving its goals? How do you think that's played a role in this year particularly?
I can speak to that for climate justice, at least. Yeah, I mean, we definitely used to have a lot more in-person events and protests and things. We've had fairly good attendance, I'd say, at like webinars and other events that we've done, which has been nice. But, you know, in terms of activism, there's just definitely more of a punch to being able to physically be in a place or in like meetings with administrators and trustees. So that's definitely been difficult because it's definitely easier to dodge a Zoom meeting than like a physical meeting. But, you know, as things ease up, I think we're moving toward that. And I think, you know, just with the momentum in environmentalism generally, and in particular with divestment, that's only really helped us. And on the bright side, I guess COVID has led to a lot more of those commitments as people recognize the intersectionality of climate change and health issues. So I think, again, that momentum has been helpful, but I think we're all excited to return to in-person organizing and get back to like what that looks like to an extent.
Yeah, and in terms of Tree-Plenish, honestly, it was honestly, the pandemic helped us in the sense that our leaders had a lot more time to expand their mission. And this is actually the year we've had the most increase going from that one school to 85 different schools. And a lot of that planning took place over like the quarantine and whatnot. Although our events this year did have like pretty strict COVID guidelines in terms of like how many volunteers and masks and all of that stuff, it was definitely still plausible to hold all the events. And we had backup plans in place for different situations as well. So although it wasn't exactly a convenience, we were able to still work with it.
I have a question for CJBC. How are your guys' relationship with BC and BC's response to everything?
Honestly, not too great. I think we've always been at a stance of we are very open to dialogue and we want to discuss these issues. I mean, it was in, I think, September of this past fall. I was in a meeting with an admin who said like there is no more room for dialogue with us, and we've offered other things instead of full fossil fuel divestment, like just divesting from coal, one of like the dirtiest fossil fuels, and like with the least financial potential, or creating like a socially responsible investment committee to discuss these issues. We thought we could have that committee and then move toward divestment, and kind of make it slow, hold their hand in the process. And at this point, we've been told all that's not possible. So I mean, on our end, we are very much still open to things, but we're very much perceived as like adversarial, just because we believe this truly is justice that is being pursued and is being at this point pretty ignored by the administration. So I'd say the relationship isn't great, but we would be happy to make it better. I think it really just needs to be a willingness on their end to meet us, not even halfway, but like just an inch toward us and toward climate justice.
There's another question from Vernon.
Yes. Yeah.
I think he asked, has your group connected with DIVEST Ed?
Yes, we're very involved with them, and they're very involved in the work with the College Climate Coalition in particular. So they've been a very good resource for us in terms of organizing.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, we're almost at time, so we can leave it there. Thank you guys so much for answering and for being so helpful and responsive. And we hope that you've all had a great experience in the panel and have gotten a better understanding of what climate justice is and how important your role as a student and young leader is in instituting real change in both our local and global communities. Once again, thank you so much to the hosts, all the panelists, and all of you in attendance for your commitment to climate action. We also wanted to send a special thank you to our crew supervisors and leaders, Reverend Vernon K. Walker and Margaret Thurston, for your aid in getting this panel to happen and for an incredible and informative year with communities responding to extreme weather. It's definitely an experience that will stick with me and that I won't forget. And again, for more information on our mission and for the role of crew in the Boston area, feel free to check the link that was sent in the chat earlier tonight. And thanks everybody again for your attendance. And we hope you have a wonderful end to the semester and an even better summer. We're almost there, so